Whoever's typing, can you stop?
And welcome to another Biddle for April 6th, 2019. And already I messed up the intro. There you go. It's going to be a great show.
Good evening,
G'day, all.
everybody.
All right. How's everybody doing?
Doing great.
Great. Good. How are you guys?
Anything major happen in your guys' life this week or what?
I had my computer crash that's in my ham shack. It's the primary computer in there, and it looks like it's a dead motherboard. It's a dual core Celeron, so it's not worth repairing. So I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to get another computer put in there. So,
Chris, what did you do to it?
I kept it running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
That'll do it.
It just said I had enough and decided it wanted to go away.
All right. So, anything else? Anybody else have any exciting news?
My Manjaro broke twice.
You
so
did say that.
It broke once, and today it broke again.
Oh,
Wow.
what's the main cause?
So, did you fix it the first time?
Yeah, but second time, it was me who was the problem. So this is what happened.
Usually is. Big
First time, I believe it was Ubuntu Budgie and how I installed it. So kind of again my fault. But second time, I just didn't really bother fixing it and gone with Arch mainline. So for now, I'm gonna be mainline Arch.
Nice. Very nice.
Well, I broke Budgie twice, Rocco.
Well,
That was fun.
Colin, we're going to talk about Budgie. I don't know if it's going to be good or bad. And of course, Dustin, he's got to let real life get in the way, or he can't be here. I mean, ridiculous. But
That real life thing, Rocco, is it?
it's painful sometimes, dude. It gets in the way, but
Absolutely, it does.
Vash, you want to start out on Ubuntu Budgie?
Sure. So I did not have a whole lot of time this week, but I did end up installing it on a, old, but new to me desktop I've got here that it's an old HP 6300, but I just wanted something else to hop on. So I have this ThinkPad on the something stable, but ultimately it worked pretty well. The only thing that was really one of the things that really threw me off really was the fact that the big clock on the screen is listed under panel. And so you have to go under panel settings and then go to the actual clock, and then you have to hit something else. It was really strange, and it took me way too long to figure out where I had to go to change that. I think mostly everything else set up just fine. I don't know if this was a 1904 issue, but I got a USB Wi-Fi card for the machine, and I could it would connect to 2.4 gigahertz networks fine, and it would see the 5 gigahertz networks, but it would not connect. And I just, during my Google searches, DuckDuckGo actually, during those searches, it ended up talking a lot about updating from 1704 to 1804, and this is obviously not 1704, so I'm not sure what was going on there. I'm gonna have to try it on some other distros to see what was going on. But I mean, overall, it was fine for me. But I didn't do anything too out there beyond, like I say, trying to find that clock setting.
So all right. So you ever run Budgie before?
Not beyond Solas, no.
Okay. So are you a fan of Budgie? Is this something that you would enjoy trying, because from the aspect of trying Budgie as a new desktop environment, or trying it as something you've already used and you like it?
I mean, it was okay. I don't see anything that to me makes it stand out compared to other options. But I've been mostly focusing my time in on Cinnamon and KDE Cloud Platform.
Both very good options.
And did you notice any major difference between Solas Budgie and Ubuntu Budgie?
The Raven panel on the right, I really liked it in Solas. It worked okay here, but it wasn't quite the same, I didn't think. But that's just me.
Well, Ubuntu Budgie has the applets, which Solas doesn't have. A lot of the applets were created by the Ubuntu Budgie dev team. So that is one difference. All right, Adam, what's going on?
Not much, man. How's it going?
Awesome.
Good times. So I spent about 2 hours with Ubuntu Budgie. And then I did a good old Zeb next after that.
Why?
It's so bland. Like there was nothing exciting about it. The desktop is was bland. I don't know. There was nothing like exciting about it. It just felt like Ubuntu with a lackluster desktop on top.
What was one thing you could say was missing from it that you would expect?
A decent menu.
Ding 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 ding.
Yeah,
sorry. That is one thing that it is missing.
Yeah.
I actually like Budgie. I love the defaults on it. I think it's set up as the defaults out of the box. I think they are probably one of the best in the desktop environments out there. But the menu just brings it down. That's all I can say. They really need to get a new menu.
I don't know. The overall experience just didn't wow me. And this is coming from a guy who uses GNOME with no extensions, so take it with a grain of salt.
Wow, dude.
Yeah.
Talk about bland.
Hey, I use what works. So get out of my way. But no, the Raven menu, it seems nice, but it doesn't feel like it's as fully fleshed out as it could be. I don't know. It just felt kind of empty. Like it didn't. Maybe it was my setup or something. Like I know, like when you start playing music and stuff, it shows in there. That's kind of neat. But I don't know. When I think of like a slide out menu, I feel like there should be more to it. And maybe there's something I'm missing, but.
Well, there used to be more to the Raven menu, but a lot of it was stripped out. Because before there were more things in it, but it also was kind of busy with a lot of different things that maybe you didn't need in there. Mm-hmm. Like there were shortcuts to the settings or the Budgie settings, stuff like that. And I don't know if they found their way exactly as far as the Raven. I don't even know if they're going to keep the Raven menu or not. I'm not sure. So it has been stripped down. I can say that.
Yeah.
Didn't the Solas team make a special menu for the Mate?
The brisk menu.
The brisk menu. Is that not what they're using in Budgie?
No.
Oh, okay.
And they should be. But when Ike created that menu, he created it specifically for the Mate version and Ubuntu Mate. So he had said a while back that will never be in Budgie because that wasn't created for Budgie.
Well, he's gone, so why don't we do something right?
I used it for the whole week, but I wasn't like going major. I'll save it for my Karen. Sorry, my bad.
No, you can jump in, Zeb. Go ahead.
No, it was only from the menu point of view. I clicked on it, it worked. I searched on it, it worked. So what more do you need? Or what more did you want?
Well, it's gotten better since it started because there was no sorting or anything. It was just a mishmash when you open that menu. I don't remember, to be honest with you, if it has the keyboard functionality as far as navigating through it, like when you start typing.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I don't believe unless they added it, maybe I'm forgetting, but they don't have any favorites in there either, do they?
Yeah, they have no favorites. That's probably one of the biggest things I would say.
I don't know, when it comes to like a menu searching, using GNOME, like I kind of got used to it searching more, and KDE as well. Like it's searching more than just the applications. Like when I use a search, I want it to be a search
of the whole computer.
Yeah, not just the menu.
Yeah, I like that too, I must say.
So it is a very basic menu.
Yeah, and I don't know. That's kind of how the whole desktop felt. It's very basic. Uninspired.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Chris, what did you think of Budgie?
I missed the mute button, but anyhow, no, I liked it. I liked that. I liked the install seemed a little bit slicker than Solas. But basically because I didn't have to use an external partitioning scheme. I could set it up pretty good within within that to begin with. The menu system did take me aside a little bit. I'm not used to having a top-down menu, pull it down from the top. I'm used to pushing it up. But then I remember this is also Ubuntu. Ubuntu is still beholden to the upper left-hand corner for the menu button, which is perfectly fine. It was just something to get used to. Once I got used to it, it was fine. But it is a very cluttered menu. It has a lot of the one thing I really liked about Solas was it only had a few categories and you could quickly get to what you needed rather than go through 500 categories that would come up just to get to the app. I went more to my Windows trick and basically just typing in the name of the app in the search bar and finding it that way. Other than that, I didn't really have any problems with it. Installed printers fine. Installed Lazarus. Wrote a couple quick apps on it without a problem, both command line and with the GUI. That's about all that I really did with it this week. I had some things come up. A friend's computer blew up, and so I've fixed that, and everything else will work and stuff like that. So real life getting in the way of my fun.
Right. Is it something that you would use?
Yes. If there was any reason why I would go away from Fedora, I would definitely. Or if they have a budgie for Fedora?
Do they? I don't know.
I believe they don't have it.
No, I thought they had a spin for it. I'll check.
Maybe Fedora 30 does it, which dropped today?
Or maybe this time.
Yeah, but anyhow, yeah, I would definitely use it if I wasn't using Fedora. And I mean, Solas. I mean, not Solas.
Ubuntu Budgie.
No, the Salient.
Oh.
I mean, I really like Salient too. There's a couple quirks about it that I don't like, but I've enumerated those before, so I won't go over that again. But it would be a very close tie between a Budgie environment and on whatever platform, whatever distro we were using, and Salient. So if I wasn't using the one that I'm using now.
And
Nice.
just checking the website, there is no Fedora Budgie.
There's no spin for it, yeah.
No.
I wonder if you're able to install the desktop, though. I wonder if
Good
it's in
point.
their repos. Who knows?
Check packages.
Peter, Budgie.
All right. So I've been using Budgie on Solas, the greatest distro ever, for the last 2.5 years. So my workflow every single day is Budgie. And I find it works great for my workflow. I like the menu. I like the simplicity of it. I'm a mouse user, so I don't mind clicking through it.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it works. As for favorites, that is what, at least on Solas, let me talk about this. At least on Solas, you can pin your apps to the panel, and that becomes my favorites. So I don't even need to go into the menu to get my favorites because it's already on the panel. And you work from the one panel, and it's very simple. And it keeps out your way, and it works. So that's my favorite. Who was that?
The only problem with that type of setup, though, is if you've got like a 14-inch monitor, the panel becomes very busy very, very quickly. If you've got
that's why I've bought a 34-inch curved screen, which I'll be using on Tuesday night when my System 76 Filio comes in.
Great
Nice.
stuff. Carry that on a train in Russia.
We got to talk about that then, Peter.
Icons in the panel, I've got it covered. So as far as as far as workflow goes, I use the panel for my icons. And very rarely go into the menu. Of course, you can use your super key and start typing, and you can find an app that way as well, and that works fine. I haven't really checked out the differences between the applets and on Solas and Ubuntu. I have heard, and this needs to be verified, that one of the main differences, a lot of the Ubuntu ones are written in Python, and I think on Solas they have to be written in C or Vala. So I think that's the main difference. And one thing about the Ubuntu version is that they don't have the icons on the panel. They have a dock instead. And I'm not really a dock fan. At least on the panel, you know where your icon is. You can go straight to it. It's mouse muscle memory. You just know where that app is. But when it's on a dock, and a lot of times it drops off the screen, you've got to remember where in the screen to drop down to find that app on the dock. I don't like that workflow. That's me. So, but that's a choice that Ubuntu Budgie made. And that's really it for me.
All right, Colin.
Yep. My son's been running Ubuntu Budgie, I think, since 1804. So he seems to run it without issue. This release, it's good to see that they've got the Nemo file manager within the Budgie desktop, because I really like Nemo.
You mean you like the second best file manager on the planet, Colin?
I found Nemo, Rocco, the best file manager on the planet. Open as root, by the way.
We'll discuss later.
And yeah, the dock, I don't understand why they have why they've got a dock in there, and it must be what's the name of the dock that normally comes? I think it's
Plank.
Yeah, it's Plank.
Yeah.
I don't understand that, because you have a toggle switch within Budgie that you can create a new panel and just toggle it into a dock anyway.
Yes.
Yeah. So and they make it very simple that way. So I don't understand why you would put a dock in there. It seems to defeat the purpose of the simplicity of the desktop. And that's why it was designed that way, with simplicity in mind. And I suppose that's why the menu is the way it is too. Good point, Peter. I must say that you make that they've got the favorites there now, and that probably offsets the fact that they don't have a favorites in the menu. I didn't even think of that myself, but I was playing around with that in Solas 4. So yeah, it is very nice touch there.
Colin, does the panel turned into a dock work like the Plank? Does it work as well?
Yeah, pretty much. It resizes the panel into the dock size. And I suppose if you made a new panel, you can put what you like on the panel itself. So if it was just launching applications, you could just put your icon task list in there and just add your favorites. Done deal. That would work just the same as Plank. So
and works just the same as the new XFC4E panel.
Yeah. So I mean that. So I don't understand why that's there, but it was there before that the favorites came along, so maybe they've just stuck with it. All they've done is moved it from the left-hand side to the bottom. So that's the change that they've made there. Now, I don't know if the issue hasn't been brought up yet. I installed NVIDIA drivers. Now, I don't know if there's a problem with the number 5 kernel or not. It would not allow me, once I selected one of the NVIDIA drivers, it would not allow me to change back. The Nouveau is not in there as well, I believe. So I had a problem with that. I had to reinstall because I could not change NVIDIA back to a different driver. It wouldn't allow me to. So I don't know what the issue is there.
And I'm sorry, I didn't catch it. Did you enable the PPA?
No, I used the additional drivers.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure out what, what's all set.
Yeah, no, I don't use normally PPAs for NVIDIA. I haven't really gone down that path much, but I went to the additional drivers. I tried the 4 point, what's the new NVIDIA 4 point something, is it?
4.18.
Yeah.
418.
418.
Yeah,
and then
but unless you use the PPA, they give you 390.
No, they don't. They give you 418 as well.
Yeah.
Well, I know in other distros, 390 works spot on with my laptop. in some cases, it just depends on what environment I'm running. But the 390 I tried after a reinstall, and still I had no luck with screen tearing. Everything works fine. It starts up and everything. But once you start messing with Xorg and .conf and all that, depends where you put the file, the 20-NVIDIA file or the Xorg.conf. It just, that's when all the disasters start happening on startup. So unfortunately, I had no joy in that area. But as far as the desktop goes, it is working fine. And I do like their preset themes they got going there. That's really nice touch as well. So, it just works.
Go ahead, Colin.
Yeah, no, that's all pretty much I had to say, really.
I did want to say that I had the same experience that Dave had, where I didn't see the 14 drivers when I opened the additional drivers until I enabled the PPA through the welcome screen, and then I saw the 14 drivers.
Right.
So,
see, I believe somebody told me, somebody looked up my card and said that it's actually Optimus. And when I looked at some of the read-ups on getting Optimus working, I just went, next.
Yeah.
It's just a nightmare. I don't know if I can follow that procedure and get it running. And maybe I just need to devote a lot of time to it, but I don't know.
You do. I've got an Optimus laptop, and it took Mark Greaves and I maybe a day and a half to get it fully working properly. Right. 1.5 days of that was me trying to work out the silly tricks that I have to go through in the BIOS to enable the use of NVIDIA drivers in the first place. Yeah, it's a nightmare.
Yep. That's why I don't bother. I've got 2 distros that work with no screen tearing. That's Linux Mint Cinnamon and Elementary. They both work fine with the NVIDIA installed. So everything else pretty much doesn't. Somebody taking a phone call?
Yeah, I think it's that Mr. Fireman has to have it on just in case. So, carry on.
Yeah.
All right. So, thanks for that, Colin. Benjamin, or is it Ben? You're up, my friend.
Yes. I gave Ubuntu Budgie a try today. Earlier today, I uploaded a video, recorded my exploration of it. It took me forever to figure out what that clock on the desktop was. I thought it was Conky, and so I went to try to install Conky, and Conky installed. So I was like, okay, so if Conky wasn't installed, this can't be Conky. And it took me forever to figure out what it was, and I Googled it, found it in top panel, in the top panel settings, and I had to give that. I had to criticize that because I would have never thought to look for a desklet in a setting for the top panel because it's not in the top panel. So I think that could be a little confusing. I had some issues with the network manager. I had DNS issues like during my recording. That was there. Other than that, I try to chalk up some of the bugginess to it's in the beta stages. It's not the final project, so I try to give it a little bit of slack in that. As far as the environment goes, I think it's gorgeous. I think it's very polished. I think they put their own spin on it. If I were to put Solas Budgie right next to Ubuntu Budgie, it would take me a while to figure out that they both run in the same desktop environment. If I didn't already know. And so, I give it a good score. I had little to no issues with it for it being a beta,
Excellent. Thanks for that. You said that you put up you wrote something up. Have you got a YouTube channel that you can point us to that we can have a look at it? Or
yes, I do.
Yeah, chuck it in the chat and we'll whack it over on the YouTube. See if we can get you a few subscribers over there so we can get a bigger feel for how you felt. Okay, Ubuntu Budgie. I'm really perplexed as to how, when you first loaded it, you didn't see the 418 drivers, because that's one of the things that for me went, whoa, fantastic. I don't have to enable the PPA. But like a fool, I did. And that's where... that's where the problem started. So thankfully, I was able to work with Dustin, one of the developers of Ubuntu Budgie, and he actually came back in the end, and we eventually worked out that for whatever reason, the 4.15 headers aren't available for the Linux kernel 5, which is why they only present you with 4.18 or 390. So once I took that PPA out and cleansed it and put the 4.18 drivers back on, it was fine. Strangely enough, I wasn't suffering any of the usual NVIDIA woes with, if you save it as xorg.conf, you'll get a black screen sometimes when you boot up. If you save it as the 20nvidia.conf in the xorg.conf.d directory, that was fine as well. So thankfully, I didn't have to use my little workaround I've got for PEP, where I have a startup script, which then does all my chicanery after it started. To get to the chase, could I use Ubuntu Budgie? Yes, I could quite easily. Would I use it? No, because it just, for me, the workflow, the way it all hangs together, looks beautiful, by the way, but it just doesn't stand up to the PEP.
Bias. You're biased.
Yeah, I'm biased. For the first time ever, and I mean for the first time ever during one of these challenges, I submitted 2 bugs that I found.
Nice.
So we've got one that, now this was really strange because I'd worked on Ubuntu Budgie before we even talked about doing it as a challenge. So I'd already spoken to Dustin and he fixed the gparted problem. So I knew exactly what to do, because there's something that happens to gparted when they take it out, but they haven't taken it out properly. So that when you try and reinstall it, it goes, I'm here, but it isn't. Oh. So you have to go through some chicanery, put back a couple of extra other bits and pieces, and it works. Only on the latest daily driver, it doesn't work. So I've submitted a bug, and that's awaiting fixing. And the other one that I found, now I initially called it a bug, and we'll go into this in a minute. When you first power up the machine after having installed it, the CD-ROM is still active. So the minute you try and go and install anything, it goes, oh, this is there and that's there, and I can't find the CD-ROM. So you have to physically go into Synaptic and edit the sources and untick the CD-ROM. And the reply from the bug tracker on Ubuntu Budgie was, thank you for your bug report. Why do you consider it is a bug to have the installation media source selected? And without being sarcastic like I'm going to be now, how many people leave the CD in or the USB key in after they've installed it? I would say 99.99999 Solas recurring 9 people take it out. I mean, let's have a quick poll here. Hands up who leaves the CD in or the USB key in so that it's there available after install, so that you can actually attack files on it.
It tells me to take it out. And
it tells me to take it out.
Yeah, exactly. You're muted, Adam. Go on.
Saying that I just leave it in because if I install something, my EFI bootloader just automatically goes to the newest installed thing, so it doesn't even boot into my USB.
Exactly, but you don't think, oh, I need the USB key in because I want a bit of software. You just go to the repository.
Oh no, I just leave it in.
Pretty much.
Just left in, yeah.
Yeah. So I wrote back and mentioned something about, well, maybe then we should have called it, and I can't think of the exact words now, and I can't see my my reply for. Perhaps it should be viewed as a bad default to leave it selected. So I'll be interested to see how they fix those 2 bugs. But getting back to Solas, I think like not Solas. Get back to Ubuntu Budgie. I'm very much like Peter Solas Spider. I'm a mouse-driven person, so everything I do menu-wise is a mouse. I'll click on the menu. Silly as it sounds, I don't even hit the super key to start typing to find something. I'll move my mouse, click on the menu, start typing something, find it. I didn't check whether that keyboard, down, right, because I'm not a keyboard-centric person where menus and that are concerned. The only other thing that I did find, and I haven't reported it yet because it might be just my installation, is someone in the Telegram group was talking about the Pixel Saver applet, and I showed Colin a screenshot. It's installed, but it doesn't appear when I try and pick it from the applet control center, and that's, I think, going to be my biggest niggle. Why have we got 3 settings panels? One for settings, one for Budgie, one for applets. Why can't they just have a settings panel with various sections? Now, I know anybody who's really cute will say, but Peppermint's got 2. Yep, agreed, but that's not 3. So I found that very confusing when I was going around trying to find stuff. And until somebody said to me, but there's a special panel for that, search Budgie. And then I found them. But no, overall, I had a good experience with it. I actually enjoyed doing some bugs, so I might do a few more of those. But then I found it really, really easy in Budgie. That's the way it should be to report a bug. It was great.
Awesome.
And of course, it has the greatest file manager ever.
The question remains, though, Zeb. If Peppermint was not around, would you use Budgie instead or something else?
MX17 all day, every day.
Okay. All right. That solves that. Steve.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
I just ran it on a live USB. It looked nice. I'll tell you though, I've seen a couple comments that it's not, that Solas wasn't as polished. Solas Budgie is definitely more polished, in my opinion, than, to give it to Peter, than Ubuntu Budgie. Ubuntu Budgie, even in 1904, was was kind of the same as 1804, but instead of having the panel on the side, they moved it to the bottom with a dock. Some of the settings, they changed a little bit, but I didn't. It wasn't enough for me to fully, just go in and test it in that. I was more looking at the aesthetics. When I saw it really didn't look as well as in Solas, I just said, next.
Next. So what you're saying is it's not going to, take the place of Peppermint.
No, it's not. Zeb, we're alone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right. Eric.
Yeah, so I gave it a try. I have to say I see a pattern emerging amongst these 1904 releases for the various flavors of Ubuntu where all of them are giving me trouble on my laptop with the NVIDIA hybrid graphics. So I'm wondering, something's different between 1810 and 1904 in that regard. And I don't think it's just the version, because I tried 418 and I tried 390. And I'm having trouble. It's fighting me. So I tried many workarounds and just couldn't get it going on hardware. So I tried it in, VirtualBox. And, I have to say I agree with Steve's comment about, I think the Solas implementation looks a little better. I think that's because I like the paradigm of the bar on the bottom, menu on the left, on the bottom, notifications and everything on the bottom right. It's just what I'm used to. I don't like the dock and bar at the top paradigm. I don't like it. It's Mac, and it's just never been my thing. So that said, I think the theme is very pretty. I like a lot of the things that they've done in terms of visual polish. It's got all of the same advantages to putting things back into GNOME that I miss. So there's the system tray. There's things that aren't in GNOME by default anymore that I can't. Which makes it so that I can't use GNOME. And it up to this point, really, with Budgie or with GTK based desktops, really Cinnamon was the only one that I felt was a good replacement because I generally prefer Plasma. Besides that, I love that they switched to Nemo. And we've mentioned that already, but Nemo is a great file manager. And in terms of that versus Nautilus, I mean, there's no contest in my opinion. So that would make it very usable for me. I don't think I would use it every day just because I am so happy with Plasma now that it's really hard for me to use anything else for longer than a few days before I just want to get back to Plasma. You know, it's just right now it's home, you know, and it so completely gets out of my way and lets me do everything I want to do. And I don't find myself, even though it has infinite customization, I don't find myself wanting to tweak it as much as I do with GTK based systems, if that even makes sense. So I think the Budgie team has been doing and is continuing to do a fantastic job. I think they're doing something that's really special and should be definitely on the short list of distros for people to be trying out and looking at. It's probably not one that I'll be using, but I will continue to look at it and hold it in high esteem. So good job, guys.
Nice. All right. Big Pod. Did you try it? Between reinstalling Manjaro or reinstalling Arch?
I used it for 2 days while in school, so I did have quite a big usage of it, and I liked it quite a lot. It's not really what I would use. Some call it what GNOME should have been, which is in my opinion not really true, but yeah, it works well enough even for me. That menu isn't really useful to me. I just search things. I press super key and search, and that's it. So, but otherwise, first thing I actually did was install Nautilus because I love Nautilus. And
really
is bad.
Really?
In comparison to Nautilus.
Really?
Yes.
We're going to talk about this. Not yet, but we're going to talk about it.
And otherwise, yeah. And another thing I actually installed was I don't like the Tilix terminal. There was another thing I right away replaced with URXVT. But otherwise, most of the stuff I left the same, and they worked quite well.
Nice.
Just, I guess, kind of broke my Manjaro, so.
And was that a UEFI thing or a grub thing?
Because UEFI grab, I don't know. Kind of forgot it was like that day was quite hectic for me, that hour of fixing.
That's what you get for using Arch.
And I was in the middle of a class. Fixing Manjaro.
Yeah, just what you don't need. All right, a Big Pod, thanks very much indeed. Paul, you're up, my friend.
I did not try GNOME Budgie. Next.
Shocking. Nice and short. All right, then, Dave, what about yourself, my friend? Did you try it?
I did. Didn't get to spend a lot of time with it, and I think a lot of that was my own fault. I've been out of the Ubuntu sphere kind of long at this point. I don't think the installer liked me when I tried to tell it had to use an XFS partition, because the installer for me took better than 45 minutes. It was looking for file systems for 10 minutes. Then it was looking for other operating systems for 10 minutes. And there was one other step where it was a good 10 minutes just stalled. It did eventually install, booted right up. I think it offered me the 419 drivers, but when I clicked on them, it immediately said, "Do you want to enable the PPA?" So that's why I said that you get it with the PPA. I installed the NVIDIA drivers. It liked the NVIDIA drivers, but even when I ran NVIDIA settings with sudo, it wouldn't let me save to the xorg.conf.
Forgot that one.
So
Yeah.
It would not merge in, and I couldn't, and I didn't want to take the time to see if it would do it if I actually dropped to su user instead of just going through sudo. So I fought with it for a total of about 3 hours. The only other problem I really had with it was the font scaled up nice, but I couldn't get in the applet tray along the top. I couldn't get those icons to scale up, so they were real tiny on my 4K displays, even when I made the panel larger. That was the only other drawback I had against it. The menu didn't really bother me because I spent so much time in the terminal anyway. So the menu didn't bother me. It looked nice. It ran nice. It didn't, crash on me otherwise. So those were the only issues I had with it. And I think most of them, honestly, were of my own making.
Mm-hmm. Just a quickie on that panel thing you saying when they didn't scale up properly. That was one of the things I thought was really good about Budgie. I thought it scaled well. Did you have that same experience on Solas?
No, I could actually go into and choose the applets and edit them and scale them up in there. And I couldn't find a DPI setting in the Ubuntu Budgie panel for it.
That might be worthwhile mentioning to Dustin, because I know that he's got a 4K monitor that he's playing around with, and that's how they've seemed to, for me, have got it to work so well. So, yeah, if you've got the time.
No, I mean, I didn't go hunting real hard to try and find an overall system scaling. And, that might have taken care of the problem. But like you, it's just a habit to go in and upscale the font and upscale the individual items without doing it the whole system way. I do have to agree with you on the fallback to MX, though, because it is the only operating system that I have found that it will install on anything I throw it on, including a 2007 MacBook that I inherited that won't take anything but MX.
Cool.
And Puppy, but MX.
But then most things take Puppy because they just run from a USB stick, doesn't it?
Exactly. It's just trying to get it to boot because it's one of the, I think it was like the second generation MacBook. So it's still the old, you have to have 32-bit EFI.
Yeah, so just as a warning to everybody, let's not say it a third time. Otherwise, Mr. P himself, Prophetech, will come along and start talking about, shall we do Puppy? Oh, I said it. I've done it now as a challenge.
But I mean, Ubuntu Budgie, it was real nice. It ran nice. It was just the little niggles, and I think I've been away from the Ubuntu ecosystem longer than I should have for me to be able to get back into it smoothly.
Nice. All right, then, Dave. Thanks very much indeed. Frank, if you're there, you're up, my friend.
I'm here.
Excellent.
I had a lot of things going on this week, including one that we'll probably talk about maybe a little bit later. Biggest thing for Budgie, I don't like Budgie. I just don't like the interface. I'm happy that they went with Nemo. I think Nemo might be the best file manager out there.
You're wrong, Frank. I'm sorry. Sorry to tell you that.
But
it's clearly Nautilus.
Yeah. So that's basically what I have on this. Just too much going on to really give a deep dive, and some of that we'll touch on in a moment because I made some crazy idea that I broadcast in the channel, and now I've got to manage it.
All right, like I said, we can chat about that in a little bit. Mo, you're up, my friend.
Hey guys, it's been a while.
Steve, what's going on, brother?
Hi.
Guys, is my audio okay today?
Perfect.
All right. Yeah, I've been kind of gone off the show for a while, but I have been on Budgie. Shortly after they put it on beta on their website, I just was looking for something else to install, and so I installed it. I'm kind of stuck as having to live with hand-me-down hardware. I really didn't find anything wrong with Budgie itself, but if I had better hardware, I would maybe run Ubuntu Budgie, but I'm kind of happy with my Ubuntu Mate and really didn't see a reason to switch off of that at all. So I'll probably stick with it. But I did want to make a comment. I think Adam had brought up the question about, which community is your favorite a couple days ago on the Telegram channel. And I thought that was a really good question, because one of the things that I found really awesome about the Ubuntu Budgie community was the fact that their developers are very, very engaged with their community and really are willing to help the average user fix little niggles and little problems. I thought I had found a bug. I had gone through with Dustin and talked to him on Telegram a little bit on direct message, and Dustin said, well, you should really go on to our discourse forum and put it on there. And I did. And it was with one of the applets, and the main applet developer, Jacob, got on there right away and started diagnosing the problem. And it turned out it was might have been because it was a beta release, but something had gotten messed up with the configuration. I just had to run a dconf command. I'm not exactly sure what it did, but somehow it fixed everything. And so the applet was working just great after that. So that's one of the things that I was really impressed with, is how engaged their developers are with the community as a whole. And those are, in my opinion, the distros that are fun to use, the ones that have developers that engage with the community on a regular basis.
Mm-hmm. And I have to agree with you on that. Yeah, Dustin has been very, very helpful in Telegram. And yeah, although I don't personally like the discourse type forums, it does work very, very well. And you get lots of answers from lots of people giving you different suggestions, which was great for me. So the big question, would you use it as your daily?
Yeah, I would probably consider using it as my daily if my hardware was a bit better. If I had machines, my main machines run 4 gigs of RAM. If I had 8 RAM, I would probably turn to it, but it's a little more resource intensive than Mate is. So Mate runs just a little more smoothly, using less resources. So I'll probably stick on Mate.
Lovely. All right, then. Well, thanks very much indeed for that. And finally, the lovely Barbara.
Oh, thank you.
With your evil message about that song.
The narwhal song or Baby Sharks?
The Baby Shark.
Oh, please. A friend of mine who was a reference librarian at the university sent me that one. I hadn't heard it before. Oh, the narwhals I knew, so I fixed her. I sent her the narwhals, the 10-hour version.
Oh, doing my head in at the moment. That's all I can hear now. Thank you.
And she had not heard the narwhals.
So, Solas Budgie.
Okay, I didn't try this week to use it. I mean, I'm an Ubuntu Mate user, so it would have been. I would like to try it at some point, but I didn't have time. And also, last week when we did Solas, I did Solas Mate, since I'm an Ubuntu Mate user. So I kind of said, since I don't have time, I don't feel so bad because I don't use Budgie as my desktop environment. So
yeah,
and the comment about it having a panel and a panel going across the top, or a dock and whatever, that to me is very normal. But then I was a Mac user, I still am at times, so that to me is very comfortable.
Yeah,
and I think you have to look, but you can move it. I'm sure you can move it because you can do that with Mate.
You can
flip them all over the place.
You can remove the top panel and put a panel on the bottom.
I basically, I just made it look like what Solas looks like.
Right.
On the bottom.
Yeah, and I'm used to, like in Mate, I have the plank on the left and just the panel at the top, and that just works perfectly for me. I'm left-handed, so that helps,
All right, so I tried Ubuntu Budgie, and I think we were using the same computer to try Budgie, because I had like almost the same exact problems that you did. The original install, when I originally tried to download it and install it, it took me, I think, 3 hours almost until I finally got Ubuntu Budgie installed on the computer, because it froze in the when it was looking for the hard drives 3 or 4 different times. I tried to restart the installer because it just froze, and it finally got installed. And it's, like I said, I like Budgie. I love the defaults on it. Menu is meh, so we're not even going to go there. Everybody knows about that. I did find one issue with the icons, and it was only with specific programs. So the panel you'd have on the top, and you have your open programs in the system tray. Well, when I went to open up OBS, the panel got huge, probably almost 2 inches high. The whole panel just blew up, and the OBS icon was huge. Every other icon was small. And this was huge, and 2 programs did that: Variety Wallpaper Changer and OBS. So I did talk to Dustin about it, and I don't know, there were some issues with the way they set the icon in the desktop file. So I don't know if it's something they got to fix. I'm pretty sure it's something they got to fix, but it only happens in certain distributions. So, or certain desktop environments, I should say. It does happen in Ubuntu Mate, I think, and it does happen in Budgie, but it doesn't happen in KDE GNOME. So, well, GNOME doesn't even have a system tray icons anymore. The display settings would not stay through reboots. So I would set all my displays the way I wanted them, and I have recently switched my monitors. So instead of having them left and right, I have them on top of each other. So I would set the monitors one on top of each other in the display settings, and then reboot, and they would be completely back to the way it was by default. That was very frustrating. And I think the biggest frustration was the programs opening up underneath the panel. There was, I mean, it was like completely frustrating to have windows open, and you know, you usually can hold down Alt and drag the window out of the way, and you just could not do that. And it seemed like it was a constant thing where they would constantly open up under the panel. So like Telegram, every time I opened Telegram, it would open under the panel, and I couldn't move it.
Scaling maybe, or
I don't know if it was the scaling issue or the way I had set the monitors above each other. I don't know if that had anything to do with it.
Top and below, I'm assuming your menu is on your bottom monitor.
Correct.
And then it's doing some weird thing that, okay, I'm going to open up almost central to the display, which happened to be under the monitor.
Well, I mean, it could be, but I mean, the bottom, I mean, that's not exactly center. I mean, I guess maybe it's trying to be center. Maybe it's getting messed up. I don't know. But yeah, that was probably the issue that made me stop trying it through the week, because I had installed it early in the week, used it all week up until Thursday, I think. And then it was like, I just can't take these windows opening up under the panel anymore. I just can't do it. So
do you set your panel to disappear?
No.
See, I didn't have that issue, because one of the first things I always do is I set the setting to make it vanish intelligently, so that any window that opens up that would have been behind it automatically makes it go away.
Nice.
Rocco,
well, no, I don't do that.
Justin was asking if that happened in Solas.
It did happen in Solas, but I didn't try Solas for very long. If you remember, I tried to get it installed, and it couldn't, so I ended up trying a VirtualBox. So it did happen in Solas, but it's not, I didn't try it for very long to see how long it did. I don't know. Maybe it was, like I said, the config that I had set up or whatever. I don't know. But those are my issues.
I'm thinking that's an issue with Budgie, because I installed Budgie on my my Arch system here. You know, that's as vanilla as you can get it. And I had an issue with the icon set. It made my bar massive. And when I tried to open up the settings to change the icon settings, it opened up underneath the bar, so I couldn't get to the icon settings. And I honestly forgot how I fixed it. Maybe I used a keyboard shortcut or something to move the window or something, but it was a pain.
Well, to be honest with you, the first time it happened, I couldn't do anything. I was in the Telegram group, and I'm like, I can't fix this, and everybody's giving great suggestions on trying things. And I forget who it was that said maybe if you do the super key and left or right or something to move the window, like position the window in a quarter. I don't remember who said that. It didn't work, because if you do super key and left, it just made it to the left part of the screen, which was still under the panel. But I ended up hitting the super key and just smashing the whole keyboard, basically. every button because I was like, this is killing me, and it ended up randomly switching it to the bottom quadrant or whatever of the desktop, which then it was out of the panel and I could actually move it around. So
a lot of the environments that I've had experience with is usually the super key and either number pad 1 or number pad 3 will quarter it down to the lower quarters.
That could be because, like I said, I just started smashing the whole keyboard. I don't know which button it was that actually changed it. So there's my take on Ubuntu Budgie. But like I said, I love the defaults on Ubuntu Budgie. I think what they're doing is great. I think Budgie and Solas is great. I just have a few specific problems, and I think part of these issues may have to do with it being a beta still yet. Some of it have to do with underlying issues of being issues like, for example, the OBS issue, where that's specific to that icon that OBS is using, and it didn't happen in the Snap version, but it did happen in the regular version. And so, like I said, I don't know whose job it is to fix that, but either way. So that's our take on Ubuntu Budgie. I do want to say, though, you got to give these guys a lot of credit for all of the hard work they put into this, whether it's the devs from Solas or the devs from Ubuntu Budgie. They do a ton of work, and they do it without getting paid. And, you know, there was a post on the Solas issues, and a lot of the negatives were brought out from last week when we had our Solas challenge, and it was a shame because that's not the way it should come across. Like, this shouldn't come across as a big negative. Like, it's either a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and that's it. No matter which distribution or which desktop environment you're trying, there is a ton of work that goes into it. And when we talk about it, it's just our first-hand, first-world experience of how it reacted to our hardware. And there's 1,000 different configurations that it could have. So there's no way to test every single hardware configuration out there. So I guess what I'm trying to say is this is not a bash any distro or any desktop environment. This is a discussion of real users. Sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad.
And the other thing is it's not just in the back end that they do it, because how many of us this evening have talked about how the developers jumped into Telegram and Discourse to help sort out the problems that people were having that they were coming with. They do it on the back end to get it out the door, and then they do it on the front end to support the users like us who are going to them asking questions.
Yep.
I think they have an amazing team for Budgie.
Well, and I think too, you know, when we look at these distributions and we're only giving it a week, and many of us are only giving it a few hours, right? And several of us have hardware issues, so it's not fair that any one of us can say in that short amount of time that something's good or bad. Or I think we're all giving a very first, like, knee-jerk kind of reaction. We all have our favorites, and we all respond in different ways. So I think if anything, people should look at it as how do we like it out of the box? And then maybe a few of us got in deep enough to really start kicking the tires and digging around. I don't think any of it is negative. I think it's just really people's opinions. None of it's demonstrable, like, oh, factual, yes, this is terrible because we're joking around because we like Nemo or we don't like Nautilus, or, you know, and the reality is lots of people like lots of things. So I don't see any of this as being negative. And I find it very unfortunate if anyone were to fixate on any one of our comments and say that someone's bashing or being negative.
Well, I want to go a little bit further on that, what you said, Eric, because a friend of the community, a community member, basically via email, Steve, he touched on the fact that in his latest email that for us to give a distro a real try, a week is just not enough time. You know, a month you would need to give it the benefit of the doubt to try. obviously that's not feasible for us to give a distro a try for a whole month. Excuse me. You're not going to ask every one of us to give up their main distro for a month to use to test out this other one. So that's not going to happen, but it is to be taken, I guess, with a grain of salt that this is just conversations between real users. That's what it is.
Oh, and I think off of that though, like the big thing about open source, I mean, we start talking about spending 3-4 hours on a problem. It's like, well, I mean, you can do that, but if it's really something you're going to use, like there may be another option that simply gives you something where you don't have to worry about that issue that you can do the same thing with. It's so, I mean, and I know the Chris Titus Tech channel, he ended up talking a lot about, the switching distro stuff and all that. And, he had a point where he was talking about ultimately that you can do kind of whatever you want to do with the distro. It's kind of really your starting point. So to me, it's like, if you're spending 3 or 4 hours to get an issue solved, you have to really, on something in the beginning, I think you really have to have a good reason to stick with that particular distro as opposed to looking at something else that's going to get past that problem and do what you need to do.
Yep. I think I'll go back to, this is a real conversation with real users. None of us have the amount of time it would take to give a proper use of the distro, and that includes what you're talking about, Vash, with the reporting issues and stuff like that. There's real life going on. It's just like next week when we have BDLL UK, Zeb is not going to be here. He's got real life going on. You know what I mean? Like this is reality. Okay. So you're right. We're not going to spend a couple hours working on a problem that we know that we can get past with one of our better or more favorite to us distros or desktop environments. So, like I said, again, I got to go back to, it's just us talking. So,
well, I don't think we're very harsh on distros anyway, and we do try out the ones that are beta and those sorts of things. So it does help the distro developers themselves, I believe, in some cases. So
we can be harsh if you're defensive, Colin.
Admittedly, me calling the desktop uninspiring is pretty harsh.
No, that's just your opinion.
That's your opinion,
Yeah,
and that's
right.
what I'm trying to say. Somebody may take that as, we're bashing Ubuntu Budgie because they tuned into that second of the clip to say, "Oh, it was uninspiring." But that's your opinion on that desktop, and you should be allowed to say that. It's not about saying things. I want to say things in the best possible light, but I also want to be true to what your opinion is as well.
Well, and I think too, it's interesting, especially for you, Adam, where you're one of the few people who like vanilla GNOME, and the rest of us tend to bash it because it has things about it that we don't like. So I think that shows the diversity of people, and you're allowed to have an opinion. The world nowadays, and I'm not going to go off on a tangent here, but it feels like, God forbid you have an opinion on something, someone's going to disagree with you, and then all of a sudden it's you versus them. That's not what it's about. It's about you as a person having an honest opinion and voicing it. Not
Eric, be honest. He's one of 2 people that use GNOME
I'm sorry.
without extensions, and the other one is probably a dev.
I was going to say the dev, yeah.
I also want to state that how much time would a normal user who is just figuring out what distro works for him give to the certain distro? He won't give it weeks. He will give it a couple of hours. Something won't work, he will switch. And in some way, we're doing just that.
Yep.
Yeah, but if you go on any of the long-term support ones, then you probably won't go wrong if it's Debian or Ubuntu based.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Pretty much it'll be okay. And then that comes down to what desktop environment you like, isn't it?
Yeah, but most people will basically install, check it out. If it works for a couple of hours, if it works, they will stay on. And they will already make the decision, except for some software wouldn't be in repositories, the main repositories. And if that software isn't, they already made a decision. They will go off. Same with if there is some problem. They won't try to fix it. They will switch because they have the option to switch.
Right, Big Pod. You say you switch back to Nautilus. You didn't like Tilix, so you switch back to a different terminal. You know, you're going to make those changes because you know how and you have a preference. I like Tilix. I opened terminal and realized it was Tilix, and I said, "Wow, that's cool that they have that installed." So that's the diversity. That's what's cool about people packaging distros.
Yeah.
And then you're also going to find those. You're going to end up choosing that distro that suits the way your workflow is.
Mm-hmm.
And the one that, you have to make some cosmetic changes. And that's how I kind of look at with Mate. I like the way it works. It works for me. It works for the way my brain works. But I make some cosmetic changes just to make it more aesthetically pleasing to me. But basically, I don't make any change, underneath.
But that's also why when we're doing these challenges, I tend to assume that when I run into niggles and problems, they're of my own making.
Yeah.
I don't know for that particular distro how to, set the easy tweak that I do in my base distro. So, I tend to caveat things, if I knew more, I wouldn't run into this problem.
But I think that's also when I have, in the few occasions that I've actually tried some other distros or installed them on a machine, I try to leave it just as the developers intended, without doing a lot of tweaking and whatever, because really that's not the point. At least for me, that's not the point. I want to see how it works just as it stands.
Well,
and then if I really like it, I can say, maybe I can tweak this and tweak that.
Well, Dreaming Wolf, I think that's a two-way street, though, because, I couldn't find out where the big desktop clock was. Run with Dolphin and YouTube chat said he couldn't either. I think Benjamin said he couldn't either. And I'm sure there's other people that are in the same boat. And, it's like there are some things where it's just like I don't know how we got to the point where I was supposed to look in that particular settings window to find that.
I Googled it.
Yeah, but
that's what I had to do.
There are certain settings that just are not in the right place, and that goes for every desktop environment.
Oh, definitely. And and to me, that's my biggest problem with KDE. It's just there's so many settings out there, and it is what it is, but it's just it is annoying sometimes.
I'm kind of an odd case because I spent a lot of time in Gentoo and Arch, so I'm very used to, going and digging to find answers to things. So that's part of the reason I assume it's me, that I haven't looked far enough. I haven't looked in the correct place to find the answer.
Well, Jimmy Wolf, I'm an Arch user myself, by the way. But no, I looked everywhere to try to find the conky file that was starting on that desktop. Oh, no. I ran sudo update, db, sudo locate, conky, whatever. Found nothing. I was looking all over the system for it.
So you didn't assume it was an applet, huh?
It's not in the applet settings. It's under top panel.
Yeah, it's under top panel.
That is where the applets are set. That's where you do the applet settings, though, in Budgie with those Python applets.
It's called Showtime Clock, I think.
Yep.
Something like that, yeah.
Yep. I did want to mention one more thing about Budgie is that they did improve a lot of things, especially with the welcome screen. When I had tried it before, when you used to add the PPA for NVIDIA, you would hit the button and you basically got no confirmation that the PPA was installed. And now when you hit the button, you get an actual spinning circle saying, basically telling you it's applying the PPA. And then once it's done, it disappears, that button. So you know that it's applied because you no longer have the option to add the PPA. So this is what I'm talking about when I say about the amount of hard work that goes into it. The distros, the desktop environments, that the little things that, we'll talk about. I talked about what the icons were huge on some of them and the display issues. But like I said, even with that, there's all of these improvements that have come into Budgie since the last time I tried it. So you got to take both of them, both sides, good and bad, and look at them and weigh them out to see if it's for you.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm a Peppermint user. I love it. I love the way it works. Mark puts together a great distro, and it looks really nice on my desktop. The only way you're going to tell it's Peppermint is by the little menu icon that I left up there. You know, and it's nothing against Mark and the team or that. Make it my own. It just the workflow works so immensely well with the way I do things. And I wasn't putting down too either. Ubuntu Budgie. It's just not for me.
Right.
No, that's fair enough.
That brings up a question that I kind of have is that, we look at all these distros every week, and invariably there's a collective of people that's just like, okay, it's not for me. It's not for me. That phrase over and over again. So the question is, of the current, like the main distro you run, like there was a point in which that was new, right? Like that was, you were trying that out for the first time, and it's like, you kind of wonder like, what is it about that distro that enticed you enough to stay with it versus something that we try every week?
And you know what? That's a good point, because not only do distros, or they're new and old, but there's things that come into favor and fall out of favor. I was a Ubuntu user years ago, and then it got terrible. And some of that was just because of Plasma, and some of that was because I think the Ubuntu team sort of lost focus. And 1604 was abysmal in my opinion, and then it slowly got better and better and better. And now I feel like it is truly one of the best put together distros that are out there. And say hi. And that's just how it goes. Sometimes Ubuntu is the best thing in the world, and then the next release you go, what the heck happened?
Yeah,
is that one thing or those two things that are really important to you are no longer there or don't work anymore?
Well, there's somebody here that can answer that question, Dolphin, right? What happens?
Which question?
What happens between releases that these issues go wrong?
Sometimes we just forget about them. Sometimes we don't like them. We just get rid of them. No, actually, it's funny. It's one of the reasons why we started up our bug tracker. Now all the big boys have bug trackers, but we just got one, and we did that because we were missing stuff in the forum and trying to get it incorporated. But sometimes things change because your upstream changes, and even though Ubuntu is the big boy daddy on the block with everything, well except for Red Hat, for everything for desktop Linux anyway. Even they have to deal with upstream stuff that goes away. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes your hardware is not supported in the kernel anymore. You 32-bit users, you know what I'm talking about. This stuff happens. Sometimes something that gives you a performance boost down the road makes something else that used to work fine not work anymore. And we're seeing that a little bit with the NVIDIA drivers here lately. So this stuff happens. As far as hardware goes, you can't have it forever. I know we want to run Linux on 25-year-old computers. I think someone's running it on an ENIAC over there. It's just not going to last that long. 10, 15 years. I mean, what are you going to do? Yep. Stuff happens. But as far as I'm concerned, I just ignore everybody and let it go.
Yeah.
Oh, Rocco, speaking of ignoring, in MX, you can select your ESP now.
Nice.
I'm just saying.
Nice. Something
it was like 3 lines of code. It was not hard.
Really? Now, I don't think it's hard for other desktop environments, distros that we won't mention, to do that. I think it's a philosophy difference in what's the best way to go about doing EFI or UEFI. So,
yeah, I'll argue with Chicken later about system deboot versus grub and what's a real bootloader and what's not a real bootloader. And let's just for the record, I think they're both probably bootloaders. I don't think one's a hack over another, but we got one that's been running for like 15 years and the other one that's been running for about 2 weeks. So I'm going to take this one over that. Now, I want to say something real quick. The Ubuntu Budgie guys were pretty awesome. Talking with them on the discourse. I had an issue with this netbook right here. This is one of my problem children. This is the good problem child. The bad one, I didn't even bother because it's so lousy. It didn't try it. This one does not have a network jack, and it has Broadcom wireless. So this is like my test box for everything that from in Ubuntu world that comes down the pike. And the only thing I found odd on this one is the additional drivers tool obviously doesn't work very well if you don't have a network connection.
Correct.
It doesn't tell you it's not working. It just sits there and spins. I have no idea, being a user from outside the Ubuntu world, whether that little repository that's on the ISO, whether that little repository has this stuff in it and it's just not installed by default, or if it's off in the world. But I didn't have a network connection. It really should have told me I didn't have a network connection. The other thing was, I know this being a Broadcom device, I'm not going to have Broadcom, the drivers that I need to make this work, because the open source drivers don't work on it. So I had it ready. I had it on my stick. I'm there. I'm at the, I was watching tennis. The kid played tennis, and I'm installing this thing on there, and I can't install the driver because the DKMS, the dynamic kernel module system that everybody uses to build drivers, like NVIDIA, VirtualBox, Broadcom, even NDIS wrapper. Okay. I know you guys are using that one right now. That thing, all of them use that system to build the drivers. And this, you couldn't do it on here. You had to actually, I had to go back to the Ubuntu's website when I got home, grab the DKMS. And then I'm thinking, well, am I going to have to grab all the build essential stuff too? But I just tried DKMS and it was easy and it installed fine. The developers are looking at it. I hope they include it on the ISO, because I expect to have to install Broadcom drivers. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I do not expect to have to install the build system to build the driver. They mentioned that it's not included on the regular Ubuntu. I don't know if that's accurate or not. And I was wondering if any of you guys could check. I downloaded a Ubuntu ISO, and then I got stuck building a new set of MX ISOs, so I didn't get around to it.
All right,
Cool.
Dolphin, do you know the question to what the best file manager on the planet is?
And all I can tell you is this is not whatever's on the GNOME system.
I can tell you that you do know, because it's pretty much your name. Just saying.
Okay, fair enough. The KDE Dolphin file manager, I understand, is pretty awesome.
So let's have a conversation, because we got into it beforehand, and I like told Zeb to save it for the show. So Zeb, why is Dolphin the best file manager on the planet?
Well, it would be if it wasn't surpassed by Nemo. And again, this all comes down to personal choice. I don't think there's anything that Dolphin can do that Nemo can't, and I don't think there's anything Nemo can do that Dolphin can't. So it's just your personal preference on how things work and what you get used to and where you go and find things and how you tweak things. I by no means know Dolphin very, very deeply. The same as I don't know Nemo very, very deeply. I just know the things that work for me. I know that on both systems, if you press F3, you suddenly got a dual pane. I like the fact on Nemo that I can right mouse click a file and say copy to other or move to other. On other distros, it's slightly more difficult. If it's not the PEP version of Nemo, I know that I just have to go up to edit, move to other. I'm not really sure how to do that in Dolphin. So it's just a workflow experience.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that finds that to be. I absolutely love that feature. And I've actually seen in some Plasma distros where they've turned that off in Dolphin, because it's it's not an extension. I forget what they call it. And when it's not there, I'm like, that's one of the best things. So yeah, and that's what I think when I mean about Nautilus and some of the other file managers where they don't include that type of fine grain controls, that, maybe not everybody uses them, but once you get used to using them, it's impossible not to use them.
Yeah, Dolphin does have the move to and copy to items, but like Eric said, some of the distributions remove that for whatever reason. Not sure why, if it's just to clean up the context menu or what. But
yeah, but remind me though, that remove to and copy to, isn't that just then pointing you to a drive, which you then have to go and find the folder? I don't think it has copy to other pane.
It has a flyout menu, basically.
Yeah, which I then have to go down and dig through. If I'm on my fifth USB drive on the whatever folder it is, whereas literally on PEP, it's just right mouse click, copy to other, and it's straight across to the directory that is focused on the other pane. For me, that's just a godsend when I'm moving stuff around.
Yep.
That's awesome.
Well, okay, so you mentioned some of the things in Nemo, and I will mention some of the things in Dolphin. Some of the things that I don't know if you can do in Dolphin, or is there a terminal pane in Dolphin or in Nemo?
Yep, you can add one. Yep.
Okay. The places and all that stuff on the left-hand side, how much can you customize that? Because in Dolphin, I can remove or hide any thing I don't want to see. I can change the icon size, and these are the reasons why I love Dolphin. Not just because of the file manager, the way that it works, but the idea that with KDE you get a billion settings and you can change it to whatever you want to. Any setting that you want, any setting that you find in the Dolphin settings, you can add to the toolbar to be a button. So I have a hidden files button on my toolbar that I just click when I want to view hidden files and turn it off when I don't. These, like I said, these are the reasons why I say Dolphin is the best file manager. Not just not because it can copy or move to certain things, but not the inner workings of the file manager, but the actual changing of it. Yeah, to make it do it. And it comes down to what you said, Zeb. It's my personal choice, how I like it to be.
Yeah,
and
you'd have to ask Mark Greaves and or Joseph McCullough what is inbuilt in Nemo, but I'm sure there's a config file somewhere that you can mess around with and
you can move things in the left-hand panel. You can remove them, you can add bookmarks, you can do all that sort of thing in Nemo.
Is it Nemo or Thunar that insists on having removable media at the top?
That's Thunar.
Thunar.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, Thunar doesn't let you move them around. The latest version lets you move some things around, but not everything. And you can't change the order.
Yeah, that's frustrating. Anyway.
Very frustrating because, I mean, raise your hand if you want the devices like a separate hard drive at the top of your file. Thanks, Adam.
You know, funny story at work where I got to deal with the Windows world. The Windows file manager puts all the network links and drives down at the bottom, and I have to scroll through it every time to get down there, and it's irritating.
Well, that Windows sidebar makes no sense whatsoever anyway.
But my Thunar is small enough that the whole thing fits on the screen, but yeah, I wish I could move them around a little bit.
Well, see, I always add all of my extra folders, like my computer folder where I have my app images and stuff like that, onto the left panel. So I have them there. So my scrolling, plus I raise the icon size on the tree. So it's like, but I'm scrolling forever when I'm on Thunar. So.
Yeah, my hassle with Thunar is that, and then I'll tell you something cool about Dolphin. My hassle in Thunar is that when I put my bookmark or my own links in the sidebar there, they have to go under the recycle bin, and it bugs the bejesus out of me. I want the recycle bin to be last, and I can't do it. I can't, at least not on the version I have right now. Maybe that'll change. Now, here's something cool. Now on MX, we have our drop-down terminal set to F4 button. And that was because in the KDE days, or at least in the old Mepis days, the file managers were set to use the integrated terminal with F4. And the old Mepis ran KDE. So it was, I don't know if it was Dolphin then, but it was, 12. Mepis 12 was Dolphin. So you hit the F4 and you get the integrated terminal in Dolphin, which a lot of the guys liked. And the best we could do for them in XFCE was the drop-down terminal. So,
well, Conqueror was better, Dolphin.
Let's not get into Dolphin against Conqueror. I'm just not going to argue that anything was better than Conqueror.
Come on.
It's a web browser, and it's how Windows 98 do you want to get? It's a web browser and a file manager. There's still people that love Conqueror.
I know. No.
Look, man, I
Dual
miss my
pane on Dolphin,
desktop
though, is
as much
awesome.
as anyone else.
Has anybody here tried Crusader?
No, once you try Dolphin, you don't need anything else.
Years ago, I used it. I haven't recently.
So I'd like to put Nautilus in this ring real quick, because Nautilus represents a future of computing that I am enticed by, and that is reducing all the feature set down to one button that says compute. So I don't even have to think. I could just mash a compute button until what happens happens.
So you can just think it, and it will do it.
I just think all I have to think is like fist against the table on a compute button, and
there you go.
Which will fit perfectly in vanilla GNOME.
Exactly. I'm telling you, man.
I got so confused the other day. I installed GNOME on my MX install just to play around with it a little bit, and I was using another tool, and my file dialog opened up, and it looked like Nautilus, or rather, I forget. It cracked open. I thought it was a file dialog, and it was the freaking file manager. I shouldn't be able to. I should be able to tell them apart. Okay.
You mentioned installing GNOME on top of MX. I was actually going to ask, because a lot of people are enamored with MX, and I'd like to try it, but I do not really care for XFCE. So is Plasma a possibility on top of MX?
It's a possibility, but you're living in the Debian stable world, so it's old.
It's going to be okay.
Don't expect the crazy rollouts that you get. 6 releases of Plasma every week. It doesn't happen in Debian. It's 5 now, but I don't know what 5 it is. I think Prophetic had it installed at one time on top of MX. He really liked it. We've got a lot of people in the MX forum that use Plasma, and we have a Plasma respin it's unofficial, but one of our developers actually put it together.
Oh, okay.
I was going to say, wasn't it the Antics developer guy?
What's that?
Wasn't it the Antics developer guy who put it together?
No, it's a guy. It's my partner in crime on the MX tools, Adrian. He put that together. I don't know why he put it together. I think he put it together. He also did an LXQt version, and the LXQt version of Debian is really old, so it's horrible.
Well,
I was running GNOME. Oh, sorry, Rocco.
Go ahead, Colin.
I was running GNOME on MX for a little while. Yeah, it is old. So I'm just wondering, you cannot update backport or anything like that the desktop environment, no, in MX?
Not unless you backport it yourself, or if it's in Debian backports already. We've hosted in the past backported XFCE applications, and we probably will again when it finally goes 4.14, because it's probably Debian 10 is going to release before XFCE does. So we'll probably end up hosting our own XFCE packages, but we don't backport everything.
Right.
And some things won't backport, okay? Because we try to keep our compatibility with Debian. We keep the Qt libraries in line, and sometimes for KDE and Plasma and some of the fancier the later LXQts, we just can't backport them because the Qt level is not high enough.
You can't get the latest KDE or Plasma on MX, but I know where you can get it. By the way, just saying.
Solas.
That should have given it away for you.
Just saying. Frank, are you there, Frank?
Yeah, I muted myself.
Okay. You talked about something in the Telegram group, and you got all kinds of things to talk about. So, shoot.
It's just a little thing. So for the last few weeks, we've been talking about offline and online, and then after the show, a little bit about what the best distro for a new user is. And in the middle of that conversation, we also came up with an idea, well, what is a new user? Because that new user to me is going to be different to you. So I proposed something irrationally that everybody could write up what they thought and send it to me, and I would organize it.
Why would you do something like that?
Because it's a good idea, Fairy, and it came to rest.
And Linux is supposed to hurt.
Yeah.
Right?
So, and then I decided to do something else crazy just recently, and so that's even better. But basically what I was asking is that everybody that's interested, take some time, do a small write-up, just a few paragraphs, define what you think your new user is. And that new user is going to be your friend. It's not going to be someone that you want to do something bad to. And then choose the Linux distro that you would give them and just give the reasons why. Really, the only thing that I'm asking is that you actually pick a specific distro and desktop environment. I've gotten a few already, and I've gotten a bunch of other people that say they're going to send them to me. I did a tentative deadline of Wednesday the 10th. If you guys think that maybe we should move that deadline out, is fine, whatever. Just give me some feedback. You can find me in the BDLL Telegram channel, and if you have questions, you can ask them now, or you can just do whatever. But I'd like to do it. I think it's going to be good because we can have a lot of. We've talked about just tonight the diversity in the people that participate in this show is varied. You've got a developer on right now. You've got users that use mostly Windows. You've got this great. It's not just this. Everybody says, "Oh, BDLL is this Ubuntu love fest," and there's people who don't like Ubuntu at all. So there's a great diversity of knowledge, experiences, and I just think this would be great because then it's one of those things too. We kind of, I was going to say a bad word. I'm trying to be family friendly. We complain about things that we see, like an article that might be written that we're like, this is completely wrong for a new user. One of the things that we don't do, and I do it myself, is we don't take that next step, whether that's filing a bug report or volunteering to do this. So that's what I did to myself this week.
Nice. Well, if you want to, anybody in the chat, if you want to get a hold of Frank and let him know your opinion or to participate in this, you can find him on the BDLL Telegram group, which is bigdaddylinux.com/telegram. But what do you guys think about this whole idea?
Sounds like work.
I responded. I did a 3-paragraph response because that's really I think all Frank's looking for is just a couple of paragraphs on and I think you even set it up in the Telegram group where you kind of said like what would you pick or no, define what you consider to be like a new user, what would you pick and why would you pick it?
You're exactly right. That's all I want. It doesn't have to be a 10-page, just something really small. Shouldn't take too long, and I'm the idiot that's got to put it all together.
I think it's a great idea. I just haven't had time to put my words down in text form yet, but I'll definitely be sending you something.
I think it would benefit you, Tony.
In my head, I just haven't gotten it down on the paper yet.
Tony.
I started writing it, but haven't finished.
Frank, it would benefit you if you gave people a little bit more time.
Awesome. Then we will do. How about not the 10th? Let's do the 17th. Would that be good for everyone?
Sounds good.
Yeah. All right. I'll send an updated spam to the group and put that date on there.
Then I think you would have a lot more entries if you did so.
And we'll just tag him on Telegram. We can do that, can't we? Or should we DM him?
You can do either.
Okay.
Send me a message if you would, because I've also found today that Telegram is not the greatest collaborative tool in the world. So
what are you doing?
So Frank, tell me, was it you who also was asking the question about the communities behind the distros?
No, that was that was this week, but it wasn't me that asked that question.
Right.
Yeah, that was me.
That was you.
Yeah. I was just kind of curious, like, because most of the time I look at it as a very technical user, I guess, and I look at things like, does this software solve a problem for me? And I feel like in doing so, I kind of miss out on like the more ephemeral things, like the community behind a distro or a piece of software. And I was kind of curious as to like what people thought like the best communities were and kind of why, like, you know, why they think the people behind a certain project is the best. And, you know, tonight you mentioned about Ubuntu Budgie and everything and how they helped you. And I know Dolphin and the MX folks are really responsive and everything, just, you know, that kind of thing. Because generally that's not something I think about. I think about, well, is this software going to work for me doing X, Y, and Z, and not so much about the overall package.
Would you say, though, that you look for a project with good documentation, though, as a power user?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that's probably, you can sort of do that same idea of like what type of user are you targeting or talking about. If it's a technical user, then yeah, if you're saying like go look at the Arch Wiki, go look at things like that, then that's, you know, that's one person. If it's someone that like, I need to ask a human being a question because I don't know how to find that information, even if someone were to point me to it, I'm not going to understand it. That's, you know, two completely different use cases.
Correct.
So.
And it's also beyond more than just getting solutions, like who engages with the community, you know, like what developers search for feedback as opposed to just accept the droves that are thrown at them, like, you know, things like that, like more community building that's going on as opposed to just answering questions.
And that can be the next thing you ask, Frank. What's a power user?
Oh no, this is going to be, I think, a one-time deal.
Yeah. Because I think it was you, Adam, earlier on in the stream, you asked, okay, when we first used the distro of our choice, we were new to it, and what kept you coming back to that distro?
Yeah.
And for me, and my top two choices, which are Peppermint and MX, it was the feedback that you got from the community. I think I can honestly say, in all of the years that I've used both of those distros, I've never been made to feel stupid or foolish or inadequate because I asked a really simple, basic question. Somebody always came back with if you'd read this or if you did that, and they didn't do it as an RTFM statement. They just said, it might help if you go and read this. If you then can't understand it, come back and ask us again. And you might then ask us in a different way, which enables us to point you in the right direction. And it's that Peppermint community and the MX community which makes them, they was, you know, I hose my machine loads, and the first two things that go on there are Peppermint and MX because of the community. I know I can ask a question and get a nice answer.
So right there with you, Deb. Right there with you.
Yeah, so I mean that's an endorsement for a technical user, because Zeb, I know you don't like to get too deep in the weeds, but I mean, there's definitely you have a background where you have the patience and the technical skills to fix things, but you appreciate that you have the ability to engage in a community like that. So that's, and I agree, that speaks volumes. And you can tell the folks that make a concerted effort to reach out to their users on the platforms that they're using, right? Not, I think a lot of people will say, well, you can go on IRC, and again, most people aren't going to go on IRC. So I like to see groups using Telegram and newer tools. So it is important, absolutely.
Yeah, and not just distros, but also, you know, software projects in general. Like I found that I was having an issue with Overwatch and Lutris, and the people in the Lutris Discord were more than happy to help out. And like they did a great job at identifying the problem. And you know, as a very technical user, I still couldn't figure out the problem even with documentation and everything. So going through it with other people was really helpful. And that's not a distro, that's just a gaming software, but I still found a community that was very helpful, very receptive, and very active.
I think what's really pleasing for me is we've lost that nasty taint that Linux used to have, that if you weren't technically competent, if you couldn't ask a technical question, you were sort of thrown away and cast on the fireplace. So many places you go to now can come back to you with sensible, nice, polite answers. You're always going to get your trolls. We get them on YouTube. We get them via email. But generally speaking, I think the Linux community has grown up leaps and bounds in the last 5 years.
Yeah, definitely. And that's kind of how one of the reasons I thought about this, because as you're kind of an older Linux user, like I started Linux in 2001. I remember the time where everything was RTFM and, it was sort of like if you asked a noob question or something, you were flamed to no end. So I developed a way of just kind of learning to look through documentation, learning to search through forums that were, very technical in nature. And so now I don't think to ask like a guy in the community. I think to just troll through all the documentation I can, because that's kind of how I was conditioned. But I guess now you don't really have to do that because everyone's not an a-hole, right?
Well, I think also that if we look back even at the beginning of Linux, and you go back to Unix and so on, the people who were involved in that had this attitude, many of them, and because I came from that world, and it was like they would kind of look at people like, well, if you can't figure it out yourself, you shouldn't even be using this. And that was also at a time when most people didn't even use computers. And if they did, they had one in the whole office for everybody to use. And that's changed. Now everyone's got, not everyone, but many people have whatever they have at home. And so I think the audience has changed, and we have to change with that, because if we don't, then people are just going to say, well, I don't want to use Linux because they're a bunch of whatevers. So fortunately, the audience, we're changing. We are changing to help those newcomers come in.
Well, and again, there's a broad spectrum, right? There's still the availability. There's still systems, if you want to go Linux from scratch, you want to go do Gentoo, Arch, Vanilla, whatever, then you have a certain level of expectation about how you engage with that community, because that's going to be a very technical-minded, developer-oriented community. If I go to Linux Mint or some other place, I'm expecting they're coming down to a normal user's level.
Well, I think that also goes back to what Zeb said, where you find basically a distro almost in the same length as you find a community, because we have examples of great communities like the Ubuntu Budgie community and the dev team where they will respond to issues, and I don't want to paint a rosy picture to say it doesn't exist, because it still does exist today in Linux, where there are not so friendly devs, and there are times that they ignore things and don't give you straight answers, and it's much better than it was years ago, but it still does exist. And that's why the community is even more important, because you have to latch on to those communities who do such a good job at communicating with people and responding to the users that actually use their distro. It's frustrating when you have a situation where you're, trying out a distro and the developer or whoever basically doesn't care that much that you're trying out his distro. Like, could take it or leave it. And that to me is a very frustrating attitude to take towards people who are actually trying your distro. So
Hey, Rocket.
I can relate to Adam, what Adam was saying, because I normally do Google search and search through the forums without having to actually deal with toxic people. But you can find your answers on a Google search, so it makes it a hell of a lot easier.
Well, hold on, Colin. I mean, I can say that you can find your answers on Google searches, but, there was a point brought up to me the other day, and I remember, I'm thinking back about it now. Just as a reference point, I used to work at a place, and me and this guy would work side by side. And I would search something on Google, and I would say, I can't find this. And he would go and search on Google, and within 2 seconds, he found exactly what I was talking about. And yet I was paging through pages of stuff, and I couldn't find it. It's all, searching itself is also a learned thing. You have to learn how to search and what words to use and what things to leave off, so you don't get a billion results. And that's also where new users don't have that ability sometimes. Some people do. People have that ability to search for things and find them. Some others don't. So a new user here may do a Google search and find what he's looking for in this specific distro, and another user may be completely lost and never find that solution.
And that's something. Sorry.
We in our community, and of course, I always tell people that the MX community is a strange one because our community is actually older than the distro. It didn't form around the MX community. It was actually formerly the MEPIS community. And we actually only changed the name a couple of years ago when DistroWatch finally listed us. We were out there for 2 years before DistroWatch listed us. And they finally changed the name on the website to MX from MEPIS community. But those guys wanted something in particular. They wanted that same community they'd built up. They wanted that to continue. And a lot of the people that were there when we all dogpiled in to help out and get the first MX out the door, a lot of those people are still there. Some, not all of them, but people come and go. But a lot of them are still there, and not necessarily developers. In fact, a lot of them are not developers, and some of them chime in every now and then. Every time they break something, they call and say, "Install something, I broke it." We're trying to. Speaking to the Google search thing, if we can find it in a Google search, a lot of times we'll post the link with the search terms. We'll post the search string so that they can click on it and get the information that way if it's something that works that way. As our wiki's getting bigger, we're posting links to our wiki for people. We'll post links to the Arch wiki. Okay, the Arch wiki is fantastic. I don't know why you wouldn't use that thing. That's better than, why didn't you search the wiki? Why didn't you search this? Why did you search that? Just give them the link. It's fine. We tried it. We have to be a little weird. Ever since we went to a PDF with the manual, it's a little trickier to give people direct links to the manual. But we've got page numbers with a PDF, so we can give them a page number. That kind of thing goes a long way with the what I call the mythical new user. Nobody's a new user coming to Linux. They might be a new Linux user, but everybody's used a computer before. And they've somehow managed to take that step from burning the ISO and getting the thing booted most of the time. Not always, most of the time. But giving them the links to the search terms, giving them the search string helps them do all that other stuff and gives that more knowledge down the string. The one thing we are unabashedly Linux. We're not trying to pretend. People always say we look like Windows 98. We're not trying to look like anything. We got a panel on the left, for crying out loud. We're not trying to look like anything. Well, by the way, I'm just saying, try Budgie with a panel on the left. Well, they can't move the clock, but other than that, it's okay. So being friendly in the forum is so huge. It's so huge. And I used to yell at people back before I was on top of the food chain. I guess the release developer. I used to yell at people, don't scare away my users. Need these people. Mm-hmm. Once you adopt that mentality that you don't want to scare people away, your community can really grow and grow and grow and grow. And we get numbers every month. We get our forum people compile our numbers, and I'm terrified at how many new users are coming into our forum right now. It just scares me to death that I make a change now. It used to be I make a change, a few hundred people got it. Okay, now I'll make a change, and it's several thousand, and it's
yeah. But Dolphin, it doesn't take much to, and I won't say it as light because it's a lot of work involved, but it doesn't take much in as far as specific work to make a community. As far as with one person, one step at a time. When you respond to somebody from a question that they've asked, when you respond with an answer, you're already communicating with that person, and you're already growing a relationship with that person. If that continues, that's going to be a user, basically like Zeb found his community, his distro. That's going to be a user for life, basically, because not all communities are like that. And that's why I say we got to promote the communities that are like that so that we can gain these new users and not scare them off.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I won't say there's never that RTFM moment, but it's far and few between. We try to keep it that way. And we've run off people who do terrorize our users on occasion. Well, we don't run them off, but you give them the forum. Our moderators are pretty aggressive, and if they a lot of times that guy who's bullying, if you put the smack down on them, just give them a little warning, they never come back. They're gone. They're going to go where they control somebody else somewhere else, and that makes me happy.
And to be fair, you can't help everybody. There are definitely people, like I just saw someone, Jennifer, in the YouTube comment saying, I don't like when people answer a question with a question. Sometimes you have to, because they're just like, well, how do I do this? And you don't even know what
Oh, yeah. I mean, the person who's new to Linux doesn't even know how to list out the information.
So Dolphin, one of the things
to ask the question.
Yeah, you have to be very patient.
Google searches.
Well, there's no way that you can answer the question unless you have certain facts about the question being asked. But there is something to the fact that answering questions with questions that is very frustrating. So,
or just posting a link, right? If you just say, well, you don't give any context and here's just some link somewhere, right?
Yeah, Eric makes a good point. If you soften the question, if you soften it with, well, it could be a couple of things. Let's get some info.
Yes,
and then
exactly.
You can list off everything you were going to list out before without that little softener. And I have seen a couple of our developers. Some of us are a little rough and gruff, and I've had bad days when I ain't had the coffee. And okay, I'm coffee. And I usually go back and apologize when I'm short. I don't always, because sometimes I forget, but. We've got a couple of they've been pretty gruff. And you know what? They've got these little softeners in there now. And we had development coming back on one of our live tools a couple weeks ago. And I couldn't believe we were getting the information back from her. And the users, it was just great. I was loving it. I didn't have to do anything. I wasn't doing anything. This was not my part of the project. And it was a regular user. It was two of our big our heavy hitter code guys, and they were really having some good engagement. And only once did it get a little sharp, and I think it was just one of those deals where things were in text and nobody was, there's no inflection in text, so that can be hard.
Frank, you've been trying to say something. What were you trying to say?
The one thing I was going to try to say, and you mentioned it before about RTFM. You can't really do that anymore. Dolphin is one of the very few developers who has a distro that actually has a usable, informative manual. And it's like, 200 pages long? And it is, but you don't have that. You don't really have sometimes point a new user to something that's got some information to it. And no one wants to write documentation for free.
I mean, the big boys have their wikis, and a lot of that replaces the manual. But I mean, we have people in the MX community. Our manual was written because Bebas had a manual. And it's 178 pages, I think, now. And I think it's translated into 6 languages.
Well, the Arch Wiki is awesome. The MX manual is awesome. The OpenSUSE Wiki is pretty awesome as well.
Yeah.
And there are still people who will just, as you said, Eric, just put a link in there for the Arch Wiki if people ask a question. And that just is totally, it's very frustrating to see that happen, because you're trying to, bring people to the community, and then you see that, and it's like, really? I mean, really? That's all you got? A link?
Yeah. Especially considering if you took the time to get the link to the main page of the wiki, it would have taken you another 15 seconds to get the link to the actual page they need.
Well, and Dave, too, specifically, like so many of those pages they're granular. There's so much information. So someone might have a specific question about System D, and it's a, 16 scroll page with all these different links to. So even if you were to link to that page, the thing I dislike is it's just like you took and I agree with your point about you took the time to go and get the link, and you can't even give the slightest bit of context around it. Like, look in this section, or this is why.
Right, but in the Arch Wiki, you can actually, if you go to the page, then click on the header, and then get that link, it'll take them actually to that section of that page that they need.
Yeah, but if you're on StackShare, you're not on. You know what I'm saying? I think the context is if I'm someone who's technical and you're pointing me there, great. I'm probably going to understand what you mean. Thank you. You've helped me. If I don't understand what it's telling me, then it didn't help me, and it frustrated me, if nothing else.
The Arch Wiki, as great as it does lack context, and it's in the context of the greater article. But if you linked to someone, if I wanted to tell somebody how to enable FreeSync on an AMD card, and I just link them to the AMD GPU FreeSync section, they're gonna be like, "What is this? Where do I put this? What does this line mean?" So if I explain there, hey, this section has a line of code, put it in this file, then that's
it needs a lot of stuff written in English. There's a lot of people, myself included, who can't understand. Here's a command. Comma parameter, comma parameter, comma parameter, comma parameter. I mean, what
You don't give yourself enough credit, Zeb. You do really well.
Seriously, I do okay where I can get instructions that are what I call in plain English. So many times these wikis come along and they give you a fantastic technical explanation, and then don't give you a simple explanation or a one-line example, i.e., looking at all these parameters, if you did this, you would get that.
Agreed.
I can then go back and look at, okay, that parameter, that doesn't work for me, that parameter does. But knowing how to string those parameters together, please give me an example of what it should be.
I sometimes think that people who are writing these things don't understand how to bring it down to a lower level so that people can understand it. They know exactly what they're doing and they can see it in their mind, however it is, but they can't describe it at a level that people can understand. And that's where
some of them think they are lowering it, though.
But
yes,
but
you're right.
Still, they're not lowering it enough for some.
Well, things like I hear what you're saying. Things like the Gentoo wiki and the Arch wiki are written for technical people. And remember, if you're running Arch, the Arch people assume you've installed Arch, not Manjaro, not Debian, not anything else. And that means you've done a certain amount of things to get Arch installed. Gentoo is the same thing. You go through Gentoo wiki, and then all of a sudden, I guarantee you, whatever you're looking for will will descend into whatever their package build system is, because there's always all these compiles. Emerge. All right, thank you.
Well,
we put a title in our wiki that says I got one for enabling mounting of internal drives without a root password, because that's a thing, and it says, so you want to do this, here's how you do it. Again, it's that softening in the language.
Exactly, that's the thing, and it brings it down to a level where they feel more comfortable. And that's something in terms of we're very technical people here, even though Zeb doesn't think he is. But we have to step down and really make sure that we're talking on a level, not talking down to people, but talking on a level that they understand. Maybe that's the teacher in me, but and it's a hard thing to do. It really is. But softening it also helps to bring it down.
Well, it's like a derivative, right? In math class, a derivative is easy when you know what you're doing with the derivative. But the first time you see it is like, how did you get from x squared to 2x? It doesn't. It doesn't. And if I lost everybody, I'm sorry.
No, you didn't leave.
Chris, you wanted to say something.
What's that?
You wanted to say something, didn't you? You raised your hand.
Well, pretty much the same as what everybody else has been saying, but I just remember back in the old days, the olden time, with digital. Digital had a phenomenal documentation setting or documentation system. It used to be called the orange wall or the gray wall, because they had a manual basically on how to read the manuals as well. But the main thing that I've always liked about VMS, and I wish I had that facility on Linux and Unix and what have you, is the VAX help system or the VMS help system, because it was a hierarchical. You could type in a general term, what you're trying to do. It will show you what commands are available. You go into the commands, it'll show you what all the parameters are. You could zero it down to a specific parameter, or you could get examples on how the command is supposed to run, and then you could back out of it by just hitting an empty return, and you go up a level, and that would it was a great help facility. I wish we had something like that. Right? I mean, man is great. It tells you ad infinitum what -- obscure little parameter does, but it really isn't organized in a shall we say prose fashion. It's much more this is here. Okay, how do we use it?
I'll say as a former product manager, the technical documentation is a very difficult beast. And to anyone out there, developer or community manager, anyone who is putting time and effort into documenting things for your users, they do appreciate it. We know it's difficult, but it does get used, and it is important to do, even though it is just utterly thankless and sometimes very difficult.
Yes, it is very thankless, including most dev jobs is a thankless job. I'm sorry.
See, but as somebody who constantly works with a business owner and they will not read emails we send them, they will keep asking the same questions. I can definitely understand that point of view, that it's going to be thankless, but it's like, at what point do you know, it's kind of, it's a bit different at my work, but it's like at some point, it's like, it's no longer worth us putting the time into doing this documentation if nobody's going to read it and they're just going to call the help desk and ask the question anyway.
Well, not nobody. I mean, you'll have those problem people that will just never read, but they're, by and large, if you were to, you know, tell people, look, this is good documentation and it will help you. You just have to go to it. In many cases, they will take to it. You'll just always have those people, though.
You will. And I think that goes back to, you know, Adam, your original question about the Linux community. And you mentioned about the Discord for Lutris. I think part of the issue is people don't always know where to go for each specific community, because each specific community uses some different type of form of communication, whether it's discourse or Discord or Telegram or forums, and each one operates differently. So you have to basically do your research or homework to find out which is the best way to get a hold of the devs for whatever you're trying. So
yeah, and it kind of made sense that Lutris would have a Discord, because Discord's more of a gaming thing. But
maybe they should start linking some, social media websites inside their menu.
They do actually in the application itself. They have links.
You do, but you kind of expect people, like if I'm going to say KDE and I go to the KDE forum that they have, I don't know if that's the best way to get a hold of somebody. I don't know if IRC is better, or if, you know, they may have links to all of their outlets, but I don't know which one is the best one to get the answer I want. So.
True.
I'll tell you what I've had the most luck with packagers and the Debian system when I need information is I just email them. The emails are in the packages. They're in the change logs. They list them for each maintainer, and that's probably been the best response I've gotten, rather than posting. I mean, if you post on the XFCE forum, you're going to get TOZ is going to respond to you probably. I don't know if he's a developer or not. He's a heck of a guy, and he's very knowledgeable. Or she. I don't even know if he's a man or a woman. Whatever. It's Taz. And it's another person on the internet who I don't know who they are, but has been very helpful to me over time. But I don't know if you're going to reach Sean that way. I mean, I can email him.
That doesn't help.
But a lot of people email us directly. It's actually getting to be a lot.
Well, this was a great conversation, but I have to end it because we're already over time. So it's already 4 minutes past. We didn't pick what we're trying next week. We didn't have last words yet, so we still got a little bit to go. Do you guys want to do a distro, or do you want to do the best file manager on the planet search?
I thought that was actually kind of an interesting one. The thing is, do we have I mean, you got Dolphin, you got Pac-Man? No.
Well, there's two ways we can do this. We can either do it, you come next week with your reasons why your file manager is the best, or we can just take everybody who wanted to use Dolphin and make them use Nemo for the week, and make the Nemo users use Dolphin.
I like your first option better.
By installing 4 gig of KDE dependency.
No, you would just install a distro that would have Dolphin in it. That would be the easiest way.
What about a command line file manager like VIFM?
We're not crazy, dude.
Midnight I was going to say, I'm very impressed with Zorin 15 beta, I must say. Just throwing it out
Yeah,
there.
so am I, very much.
All right. So, what do you guys want? What do you guys think?
So we did the file manager thing.
File
File
manager.
All right.
Of your choice.
I don't really care.
File manager of your choice.
Mhm.
And then next week, you're expected to bring the reasons why that is the best file manager.
5 reasons.
5 reasons?
5 reasons.
I don't know. Pick a number because somebody's going to bring 50. It's not
You're right, Dolphin. Somebody will bring 50.
Your top 5 reasons. There you go.
Top
Best
5.
file manager for you.
Going to be a day
Yes.
of top 5s.
Yeah, because it's going to be all about your personal choice and what you're used to, what you're familiar with. So, yeah, top 5 reasons why X is the best file manager.
I love the comment in chat saying Thunar hands down because the logo has a hammer.
Right.
But she's not wrong. Anna Reed has got it, man.
Anna
That's
is
what sold
totally
me on
wrong
Thunar.
because Thunar is not even close.
Thor's hammer, baby. That's what I'm saying.
I
You
can
got pictures of
change
the Viking
Dolphin's
in the
icon to be a hammer if I want. Because I can do that in KDE.
Bet you're not getting the Viking in the help, man. You're not getting the Viking in the about help.
I could change Dolphin's icon to be the Thunar icon if I wanted it. All right, that's what we'll do. Top 5 reasons for your best file manager. All right. Is that all we got? Oh, wait, before we go. Biddle Europe next week, April 13th, 3 p.m. I guess it's daylight savings time, Eastern Standard Time, whatever you want to call it. Whatever time that is for you, Google search it, will you? Okay, that's it. But we will still be having the 8 p.m. version as well, so hopefully everybody can make it. Bash, last word, brother.
He didn't mention there is the 3 p.m. Eastern is the UK version, Europe version, rather. So that is what he missed. But last word, thanks for the stream, and see y'all next week.
Dig it? Adam?
Thanks for the stream. Good times all around. Yeah, we'll look forward to telling you all why Nautilus is the best.
Chris, last word.
Thanks, and thanks for putting up with our antics too. But and I'm just going to keep it short with that. Everybody have a good night and stay safe. And it's beware. Kids are going to be out playing in the streets and stuff like that.
Spring break.
Yep. All right, Peter, last word.
I'm so glad we have an excellent community. I like everyone, and it's a great time. Looking forward to Tuesday. Get my Filio in, and next week I'll be Team Red.
We didn't get a chance to talk about that. That's wrong. We'll talk about it in the after show. Colin, last word.
Well, Rocco, I hope my Nemo doesn't turn into a Dory and I forget what I'm all the reasons why I liked it next week. Why are we here? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for the stream. Look, I use Nemo every day, so you know I've got my habits with it. So I wouldn't really know what the best things are, to be honest. I just do what I do. So I'm going to have to start looking at extra things, I suppose.
You do.
So
I'll
do that this week. Yep. Thanks for the stream, Rocco. Great stuff.
Ben, last word.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Thanks to the Ubuntu Budgie team for putting together a good project. Yeah, I mean, I'll try out both the file managers. I have both Cinnamon and KDE installed here, so I can try them both out. What I will say is I find less bugs in GTK-based applications than in Plasma-based. So I'll probably come back with Nemo, but that's just me.
Well, Ben, let me ask you, what is the file manager you normally use?
Well, since I've been using i3, I've been using PCman FM as like my main GUI, and but I've been learning how to use Ranger too. So there's that.
Well, why don't you come with the 5 best reasons why we should use PCman FM or Ranger?
No, I could do that.
That would be better than trying out Dolphin, because you can do that later. You can convince us to use Ranger.
Well, I used to use KDE full time, and I ran into like tons of quirks and bugs and little things here and there that just wouldn't work, and I just switched to GTK, and I found less bugs in that, so it's a smoother ride for me.
Is Ranger a little bit like Midnight Commander or something, or
A little bit.
Right.
It's got I think Vim shortcut keys.
Well,
Oh,
DIFM
it's
is
Vim,
in the same vein as that. So
It's a learning curve, but I'm having fun with it. So
All right, PZ, last word, brother.
All right, well, I'm going to be cheeky here and take two. And first of all, I'd like to thank you, Rocco, for doing this show every week. It really is just fantastic. Check out the latest version of Destination Linux that hit the streets today. A little bit late, but Michael was busy doing a couple of other things. And then just a personal note from me to the Linux community. Thank you. Your contributions to my fund Zeb to self have just blown me away. We're there, hit the mark. It's awesome. Thank you very much indeed. Everybody who's donated. I'm not going to name names, Dolphin, but just thank you, everybody.
Nice. Steve, last word.
Awesome community. Talked about it on my last couple of streams, and it's just amazing the turnouts that I get on my little, my little channel, and I see the same people in all our rooms, and it's just fantastic. I'm having the time of my life.
Nice. Eric, last word.
Highlight of my week, as always. Thanks, Rocco, for doing this. Thanks, everybody, for coming and being a part of it. And I will also echo what Zeb said and say, if you think about it, it's kind of amazing that all of these challenges we do and all of this software we try, we have paid $0 for any of it. So that is amazing. That means that people are putting hard work in because they love it, because they think it means something, and we all appreciate it. And I certainly do. So thank you. Have a great week, everybody.
Big Pod, last word.
Thank you for having me. And if you don't see me next week here, I guess 3 essays killed me. I have to write 3 essays till Friday. So
you'll make it.
3 essays might kill me.
You'll make it.
Maybe.
Paul, last word, brother.
Yeah, thanks, Rocco, and everybody. I always learn something every one of these streams, Learn little tidbits here and there, except for Dolphin.
All right, Dave, last word.
Thank you, Rocco and Zeb, for running and moderating this room. Thank you all for putting up with me, and thank you, Dolphin. If Arch ever went away, MX would definitely be my go-to.
No, I'll take it.
Frank, last word.
Rocco, Zeb, thank you for doing this. And I just want to say I learned a new word today, and that is dragon-in-law.
Thank you.
I'm not even going to ask about that one.
Wow. Frank, we got to talk. Barb, last word.
Okay, I'm gonna thank everyone, and especially for putting up with my little feline buddies here. There he goes. He's a big talker. And I'm looking forward to hearing everyone's opinion on why their favorite file manager, those 5 reasons, top 5 reasons. That should be interesting.
Yep. Dolphin.
Thanks for the show. Zeb, you're going to love Charlotte. Just try to get out of the airport. It'll be okay. MX 18.2 media refresh tomorrow. We haven't even finished drafting the blog post yet. I literally finished up. We're still setting up the torrent files right now, so it'll be tomorrow. Nothing major, just bug fix releases. So
nice. All right, remember 2 biddles next week. Your version and the regular version. Check it out. Join us on the Telegram group to give us your reasons why you like your file manager. And other than that, we will see you next week. Before I go, thank you to all the communities, including Ubuntu Budgie, for being awesome. Long live Linux.
And like that smash button.
Have a good week, everyone.
Good night.
Thank you all. See you later.